Hey, what is up guys, Merganman4 here, and with Doctor Who's 60th anniversary just around the corner, I thought now would be the perfect time to celebrate some of the best this franchise has to offer. Following on from the 50th anniversary, Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor took a significant departure from the other new series Doctors. Older, gruffer, and a bit more willing to let the ends justify the means. But while starting with a hard-to-crack exterior, he softened over time, learning what it truly means to be a good man and that, above all, kindness always wins. These are my top 10 12th Doctor stories. Number 10, Last Christmas.
Danny? Whose blackboard is that?
What blackboard? You come in?
Yeah, just a moment.
Last Christmas is a bit of an eclectic mix of elements. Alien meets Inception meets Santa Claus. And it all comes together to create a unique experience, probably the darkest yet most Christmassy festive special the show's seen. That contrast is fantastic. It's utterly bizarre seeing Santa team up with the Doctor against a group of brain-sucking monsters, and the added element of dreams cleverly keeps it ambiguous as to whether Santa really exists in the Doctor Who universe. I really like how the episode compares the Doctor to Santa, giving them a bit of a rivalry, but demonstrating how they represent the same thing. A symbol of hope and joy, someone ridiculous who's capable of the impossible. Additionally, the story acts as an epilogue to Series 8, with the Doctor reunited with Clara for one last adventure. There's some great tension between them as they discover they both lied for each other's sake, and Clara gets a final goodbye to Danny within her dream. And ultimately, she rejoins the Doctor on his adventures. And let's talk about those dreams. Dreamscapes are always a fun environment to play around with, and Last Christmas gets some really great use out of them. The uncertainty of when characters are really awake, messages from the outside implementing themselves into the dream, and a great use of lighting and cinematography to give the story a distinct visual flavor really set Last Christmas apart from your usual Doctor Who story. Scary, heartwarming, and full of Christmas spirit, Last Christmas is one of the show's best festive tales to date. Number 9, the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion.
You just want cruelty to beget cruelty. You're not superior to people who were cruel to you. You're just a whole bunch of new cruel people. A whole bunch of new cruel people being cruel to some other people who'll end up being cruel to you. The only way anyone can live in peace is if they're prepared to forgive.
The Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion is a direct sequel to Doctor Who's 50th anniversary special, in more ways than one. And while it's fair to say it's not quite on the same level, it does a very effective job following on from such a monumental tale. The Zygons are a great species, shapeshifters that have lost their own home planet, and I love that this story emphasizes the individuality of Zygon kind. Most Doctor Who monsters, or indeed sci-fi in general, paints its aliens in broad strokes, with individuals standing in for the race as a whole. Here, we delve into polar opposites in the Zygon occupation. The refugees who just want to live their lives in peace, and the extremists willing to wage war against humanity for a chance at recapturing their previous lives. Likewise, the humans have agents for peace and agents for war. And with a shapeshifter story, you never quite know who to trust. This story is a fantastic opportunity for Jenna Coleman to branch out and play the bad guy, with the leader of the Zygon resistance, Bonnie, taking Clara's form. And it's safe to say she's phenomenal. And while we don't get to see Peter Capaldi playing a Zygon Doctor, he gives a similarly astonishing performance in perhaps the most powerful speech Doctor Who has ever put to screen. The horrors of war brought to the forefront as the Doctor does what he does best: avert conflict with as little bloodshed as possible. The Osgood box is a clever solution to really make both sides consider. 2 boxes, each with 2 outcomes, a 50-50 chance for either side to get exactly what they want or face devastating consequences. Only the boxes are empty, merely a tool to demonstrate the futility of war. Not just a superb callback to the Doctor's own experiences in the Time War, aptly having set up the Human-Zygon Treaty upon reliving his own greatest regret, but a saddeningly relevant commentary that hits so close to home in a world full of conflict. It may not be perfect, but the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion is an extremely entertaining story that delivers an incredibly powerful message. Number 8, Deep Breath.
Do you have it in you to murder me? Those people down there, they're never small to me. Don't make assumptions about how far I will go to protect them, because I've already come a very long way. And unlike you, I do not expect to reach the promised land.
Introducing the 12th Doctor to the world, Deep Breath is a really solid introduction to a more morally dubious incarnation, without straying too far from who we know the Doctor to be, and featuring a surprise returning foe in the form of the Clockwork Droids. Let's start with the Doctor. One of my favorite things about this story is just how different Peter Capaldi's take on the role is to his immediate predecessors. I feel like most new series Doctors, while they all have their own unique quirks, follow a similar template. But with the 12th Doctor, there's an uncertainty even within himself. We're not quite sure what he's capable of or how far he'll go. I love how this story tests our trust in the Doctor. His seemingly abandoning Clara to the mercy of the Clockwork Droids so she can drain them for information, or the ambiguity of whether the half-faced man sacrificed himself or was murdered by the Doctor to save the day, rightfully leaving it to the viewer's imagination. I also think bringing back the Clockwork Droids was an incredibly clever move. They're a unique monster, and the episode gets some suitable scares out of robots repairing themselves with human body parts, but I adore how Stephen Moffat uses them to comment on the Doctor. The Clockwork Droids have been around for a long time, gradually replacing a piece here and a bit there, with the Doctor noting that they've changed so much of themselves there's probably nothing of the originals left, a scenario he himself is facing after his recent regeneration. Who is this new man? How much of his original self still resides within him? It's a great setup for the journey the 12th Doctor will embark upon, and makes for a fresh perspective on regeneration after so long. It's a really strong debut that I always have a great time revisiting. Number 7. Oxygen.
Bill! You're about to be exposed to the vacuum of space.
Oh, God! So don't hold your breath.
What are we gonna do?
Oxygen is a cautionary tale. Just how far will capitalism go? What will corporations sacrifice for the sake of their profit margins? It's a very cynical look at the future, but also a scarily realistic one. Writer Jamie Matheson puts a unique twist on the base Under Siege formula by not just having the Doctor and co pursued by monsters, but giving them a ticking clock in the form of their oxygen, or lack of it. On Chasm Forge, oxygen is a valuable resource, with crew members literally having to pay if they want to keep breathing, and details such as distances being measured in average breaths flesh out this future world immensely. The monsters are brilliantly scary too. Zombies of a sort, with spacesuits killing their occupants and dragging the corpses along as they hunt down the survivors. It's a really grim twist on what could have been a pretty bland threat, and the motivation behind them, that the crew has become unprofitable so the company began killing them off to save money, is an equally fresh take on a tried and true formula. The Doctor's solution is similarly clever. He can't stop the suits, but what he can do is ensure that their deaths would end up costing the company more than their survival, using their greed against them. I also love that Oxygen is a story that has real stakes. In one of the most tense scenes, possibly in the whole show, Bill's suit malfunctions and removes her helmet as they're about to go out into space. It's a fantastically directed moment that, even though you know she's in the remainder of the season, still makes you wonder if she's genuinely going to die, and when she doesn't, the story doesn't let the characters go consequence-free. The Doctor, having sacrificed his own helmet for Bill, has become blind. It's a fantastic new wrinkle that amps up the tension as we approach the story's climax, and the best part is, it sticks. We won't get a resolution until later in the season. On the whole, Oxygen is an incredibly effective base Under Siege story that plays around with the formula in a lot of interesting ways, resulting in an extremely memorable adventure. Number 6. Under the Lake and Before the Flood.
You robbed those people of their deaths. Made them nothing more than a message in a bottle. You violated something more important than time. You bent the rules of life and death. So I am putting things straight. Here, now, this is where your story ends.
Doctor Who has had many takes on ghosts, from aliens to holograms, but Under the Lake and Before the Flood is perhaps the most traditional, though that's not to say the story itself is. Of course, there is still a sci-fi twist, but it's more in how the ghosts are being used than in what they actually are. And indeed, the story provides a number of great scary moments that play off all the classic ghost tropes. The designs are great. Shimmery, transparent versions of their living selves with blacked out eye sockets, and the revelation that they're being used as transmitters, killing more people to boost the signal, is an interesting twist, as it means they can't kill you until you've seen the message. It's a bit more interesting than just killing for killing's sake. The setting is fantastic too, with the industrial corridors of the underwater base providing a cold, unwelcoming environment for the base under siege to take place. But whilst Under the Lake keeps things fairly straightforward, Before the Flood shifts the story into a brand new direction. Separated from Clara, the Doctor goes back in time to discover the origin of the ghosts, and the rest of the story flicks between the same location, with Clara in the future and the Doctor in the past. I really like this dynamic. Time travel is obviously quite common in Doctor Who, but it's rare for the Doctor and companion to be separated in this way, and Clara is able to report to the Doctor the consequences of his actions in the past before he takes them, such as his own ghost appearing in the future. The story uses this opportunity to emphasize the toxicity developing in the Doctor and Clara's relationship, with Clara refusing to allow the Doctor to accept his fate while he's traveling with her, and the Doctor becoming more willing to bend the rules of time for her sake. Ultimately, his solution results from a bootstrap paradox, cheekily explained in a fourth-wall-breaking pre-credits scene. As it transpires, his ghost was a fake created by his future self to indirectly give his past self the information he needed. Information he made his ghost say because he learned it from his ghost. Under the Lake and Before the Flood is an extremely effective ghost story with some fun time travel shenanigans thrown into the mix that makes for a really entertaining two-parter. Number 5, Face the Raven.
You can't let this turn you into a monster, so... I'm not asking you for a promise. I'm giving you an order. You will not insult my memory. There will be no revenge. I will die, and no one else here or anywhere will suffer.
What about me?
If there was something I could do about that, I would. Guess we're both just gonna have to be brave.
Face the Raven is a story of two aspects. There's the main body of the story around the Trap Street, and then there's Clara. But let's start with the Trap Street, which is a simple but fascinating concept for a Doctor Who story. An entire street hidden in plain sight which houses a community of alien refugees. But what would happen if they were discovered? Would they condemn an innocent human to death just to keep the peace? It's a smart move to make this scenario more personal by having said human be Rigsy, returning from Series 8's Flatline, and the fact that we, and the Doctor and Clara, already know he isn't capable of the murder he's been accused of allows the story more room to breathe and means more time can be spent uncovering the truth. But Rigsy isn't the only returning face. The street is run by a shielder who fulfills a unique role we don't often get to see. She's not a villain, she has no intention of actually hurting anyone, and her schemes are for the greater good of the people under her protection, but she certainly isn't an ally, putting Rigsy under threat of death to lure the Doctor in, and, albeit unintentionally, causing Clara's death. Indeed, I love how she seems genuinely heartbroken when she discovers what Clara's done, and how she can't do anything to save her, despite her promise of protection. Like Clara, she's ultimately a good person who's taken a gamble and lost. And let's talk about Clara, because, wow. This is an utterly, beautifully, heartbreaking ending for her. Throughout the last couple series, Clara's found herself becoming more and more like the Doctor, relishing in the danger and the risks, and ultimately forgetting that the Doctor isn't invincible. Sometimes he does lose, and here, Clara faces the consequences of her unshakable belief that they can get out of anything. Taking the death sentence from Rigsy, not realizing that a shielder can only revoke it from the person she originally put it on, Clara becomes sentenced to death. Peter Capaldi and Jenna Coleman give a pair of astounding performances in what is surely one of the greatest farewells in the show's 60-year history, as both Clara and the Doctor slowly come to terms with the fact that there is no way out. And we see the Doctor in a way we never have before, epitomizing the toxic relationship that is bred between them as he completely abandons himself to threaten the lives of a shielder and all the innocents she protects in an act of vengeance. It's only Clara who can pull him back, refusing to let him insult her memory in that way as she bravely faces the Raven, accepting the consequences of her actions with magnificent grace. This is one of the most tragic, powerful, beautiful departures for any Doctor Who companion, and I have to stress again the powerhouse of acting that is Capaldi and Coleman. Look, Face the Raven is a solid episode even without its ending. But let's be honest, the ending is why it's here. It's absolute perfection and cements Face the Raven as an unforgettable experience. Number 4, Flatline.
That is a nervous system. Scaled up and flattened. I think we've found PC Forest. What's left of it, at least.
A nervous system.
The mural in the flat. That wasn't a desert at all. It's a microscopic blow-up of human skin.
What? Why?
Whatever they are experimenting. They are testing. They are dissecting. Trying to understand us. Trying to understand 3 dimensions.
Flatline comes right out of the gate with 2 fantastic concepts. The Doctor stuck in a shrunken TARDIS, and 2D beings invading a 3D world. Let's start with the TARDIS. This isn't the first time we've seen the TARDIS brought to minuscule proportions, but this is the first story to fully take advantage of the idea, having the TARDIS stuck in the state for the duration and with the Doctor cut off from the outside world, only able to interact with it through Clara. There's a lot of great visual imagery that comes from this, such as the Doctor using his hand to drag the TARDIS out of the way of an oncoming train, but it's also an excuse for Clara to take on the mantle of the Doctor for the episode, even finding her own companion in Rigsy, a likable, street-smart graffiti artist forced into community service. Clara fills the role of the Doctor admirably, quickly taking charge and using her quick thinking to save as many lives as possible, something only improved in hindsight knowing how her journey culminates in Series 9. As mentioned, the monsters are equally impressive. The idea of beings from a dimension of 2D space invading our world, flattening people and objects and dissecting them, completely sets them apart from any threat we've seen prior. Not an easy feat after 5 decades of stories. Like with the TARDIS, there's some seriously brilliant imagery that results from this, and the gradual transformation as they begin to understand 3 dimensions and take on the forms of those that they've murdered is really unsettling. It's exactly the kind of Doctor Who story that makes you wonder, why has no one ever done this before? Flatline is a really clever story that's simply a blast to watch, and it's little wonder why it's remembered as one of the 12th Doctor's best. Number 3, Mummy on the Orient Express.
Start the clock.
Approximately 1.8 meters tall. Actually, seeing it in the flesh isn't nearly as rewarding as I thought it might be.
Oh dear, heart cheese, but can you see details?
Yes, of course. Well, it just looks like a man in bandages.
What kind of bandages? Old, new? Old, ragged?
Ragged, falling off in places. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Listen to me. You can see this thing. We can't. Tell us what you can see. Even the smallest detail might help us save the next one.
The next one? You mean you can't save me?
Well, that is implied, isn't it? Yes, this is probably the end for you. But make it count.
Mummy on the Orient Express is not a complicated story. It's not a game changer, it doesn't really push the boundaries of what Doctor Who can be, and yet, despite its relative simplicity, it stands out from the crowd by taking Doctor Who's Monster of the Week formula and doing it absolutely brilliantly. And that's what it comes down to. This is just a really, really well-told story. The star of the show is the eponymous mummy. It's a properly scary design, but even scarier is how it kills you. Only those who it's about to kill can see or even interact with it, and once you've seen it, you have exactly 66 seconds to live. No more, no less, with the little ticking clock in the corner a genius touch. It's a simple set of rules that effortlessly increases the terror and puts the Doctor in an unusual position, unable to witness the monster for himself. It's here where the more cold and calculating nature of the 12th Doctor rises to the surface. An aspect that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but I think it's a fascinating wrinkle to a character we all know so well, with just the right amount of moral dubiousness. Because he's right, he can't save everyone, so he has to ensure people's deaths aren't wasted, having to bargain with the mummy's victims to give them what little details they can with their final seconds. I really love that the characters we meet along the way all take different approaches to the situation, and are suitably fleshed out. They're not just cannon fodder, with characters like Professor Morehouse, Captain Quell, and Engineer Perkins all bringing something different to the table. I'm also quite a big fan of the computer Gus. We never really get answers as to his ultimate purpose, but he's responsible for luring the passengers on board to study and capture the mummy. He's a fun addition, with John Sessions' voice providing a memorable performance despite its brevity, and I love the twist that they aren't trapped with the monster by circumstance, but have been deliberately placed there as lab rats. Plus, I haven't even mentioned Clara. After the massive fallout from the previous episode, this story serves as the Doctor and Clara's supposed last hurrah, further challenging the relationship as Clara comes to terms with this Doctor's callousness, but also driving home how the Doctor is an addiction that she can't give up. And indeed, a last hurrah this is not. Fantastic character work, a great guest cast, a fun setting, and a superb monster all come together to form one of the greatest standalone stories the show has ever seen. Number 2. Rolled Enough in Time, and the Doctor Falls.
Winning? Is that what you think it's about? I'm not trying to win. I'm not doing this because I want to beat someone, or because I hate someone, or because I want to blame someone. It's not because it's fun. God knows it's not because it's easy. It's not even because it works, because it hardly ever does. I do what I do because it's right! Because it's decent! And above all, it's kind. It's just that. Just kind.
Oh, where to even begin? It's far from the largest scale story the show's ever told, but despite its more focused nature and comparably small stakes for a finale, it covers a lot of ground and has an impact rarely rivaled in the show's long history. In less than 2 hours, we're given the genesis of the Cybermen, the first on-screen multi-master story, the departures of 2 companions, the more or less last stand of the 12th Doctor, and the culmination of Missy's multi-series arc, and each and every one of them is masterfully executed. Even the setting is stunningly unique. A 400-mile-long spaceship that's been caught in the pull of a black hole, and as a result, each end of the ship runs at vastly different speeds. A day at the top is centuries at the bottom. I love the situation this creates that inspires the creation of the Cybermen. Stuck on the ship as resources degrade and the people have no choice but to upgrade themselves with mechanical parts to survive. There's a lot of similarities to be drawn to their audio origin story, Spare Parts, but its setting and characters keep World Enough in Time from feeling like a retread. And let's be honest, it's awesome to see the concept properly realized on screen. I also appreciate how Moffat doesn't step on Spare Parts' toes, or any other Cyberman origin, proposing that the Cybermen are not so much a race as an idea, but by making the colony ship from Mondas, still enabling us to see a modern-day take on the original Cybermen design. Cloth faces and sing-song voices intact. The build-up to the ultimate reveal is brilliant too. At first, the upgraded people resemble Cybermen only in the most primitive sense, gradually getting closer to what we recognize as the episode progresses. It's terribly frightening, and aside from perhaps Spare Parts itself, I think it's fair to say World Enough in Time is the scariest the Cybermen have ever been. But it's not just the Cybermen. Moffat also gives us 2 masters for the price of 1, with Missy literally confronting her past as her desire to become like the Doctor has grown over the series. The return of John Simm's incarnation from the 10th Doctor's era, and given a more classic series interpretation, complete with beard, black jacket, and cheesy disguise, works incredibly well. Oh, how I wish I didn't know he was coming back. His turn as Razor is oddly charming, and the contempt and disdain after the mask is removed makes for a fantastic foil to Missy, who, by the way, I adore isn't made outright good. She's very much on a knife's edge, teetering between the pull of the past and the call of her future, and the 2 incarnations finally killing each other is the ultimate irony. On top of that, we have Bill and Nardole. It's shocking to see Bill killed near the start of the story, with the Doctor's regular knack for talking his way out of things completely failing, and her ultimate conversion into a Cyberman is horrifying. I love that we get to see the ramifications of this in The Doctor Falls. Her mind fortified against the full effects of conversion, she still sees herself as herself, offering a unique approach to cyberconversion. Nardole's final moments are much simpler, but I love it for that. Going out fighting for the Doctor's sake, really showcasing how far he's come. And then there's the Doctor. So much to unpack here, but I'll just say this. It's the perfect encapsulation of who the Doctor is. Why does this story pack such a powerful punch despite it boiling down to saving a small, staggered village of people? Because that's what the Doctor is all about. Fighting injustice and saving innocence, no matter how much the odds are against him. It's a stunningly beautiful way to go out for both Stephen Moffat and Peter Capaldi. And whilst there's still an epilogue to come in Twice Upon a Time, this story acts as the true climax to their time on the show. And what a climax it is. There's so much going on in this story that I wish I could expand on, but as it is, this is the longest review I've written for this series, so I'm going to stop there. Magnificent in every respect. And before we reach my number 1 12th Doctor story, let's take a quick look at some honorable mentions which very nearly made the cut. The Estrella Conspiracy. The Pyramid at the End of the World. The Husbands of River Song. Emancipation of the Daleks. Extremis. Number 1, Heaven Sent.
Doctor, it's time. Get up off your ass and win.
Hello again. No more confessions, sorry. But I will tell you the truth.
Shocking absolutely nobody, Heaven Sent tops out my 12th Doctor ranking. And, I mean, how could it not? It really is the magnum opus of everyone involved. Peter Capaldi, Stephen Moffat, Rachel Talalay, everyone firing on all cylinders to deliver one of the most unique, terrifying, and heartbreaking episodes of Doctor Who to ever grace our screens. The most impressive aspect of Heaven Sent is that this is an hour of television, 2 brief lines aside, with just one speaking part. Capaldi dominates the challenge he's given here, completely commanding the screen, and between his brilliant acting and Moffat's skillful writing, you forget that the vast majority of the runtime, he's the only one on screen. It's a tough ask of anyone, and despite the wealth of talent that Doctor Who has attracted over the years, it's hard to imagine anyone else pulling this off quite so effectively. Complementing the Doctor's role, we have a fantastically simple but utterly terrifying monster in the form of the Veil, ever present, always pursuing. It's slow, but relentless, and the only way to stop it is through confession, cleverly setting up the reveal of just where the Doctor is. Speaking of, the setting is just as compelling, a shifting ancient castle in the middle of the sea. It's a gorgeous aesthetic, and the castle's frequent reorganization adds an additional challenge for the Doctor as he sorts out the puzzle, and the revelation that he's been trapped within his confession dial is a really satisfying conclusion to the mystery. But even more satisfying is the bigger twist, that this isn't the first time the Doctor's been here. The field of skulls, the hints of previous activity, were all prior attempts at escape before the Doctor ultimately perished, having just enough life in him to reset the teleporter that brought him there in the first place. It's such an incredible reveal, a complete game changer, and I love that we're introduced in the loop seemingly a long way in, 7,000 years, but then we get the mother of all montages set to Murray Gold's stunning soundtrack as the Doctor spends thousands, then millions, and then billions of years in his efforts to escape, every day making the tiniest amount of progress that eventually all adds up, and the relief is palpable as he finally breaks through to freedom. Incredible. And that's not even to mention the brilliant commentary on grief and how the Doctor must deal with the loss of his best friend, processing it by talking to her in his mind, and using her memory to guide him and keep him on the right path. Heaven Sent is nothing short of an astounding achievement, and it's little wonder it's gained a reputation as one of the greatest Doctor Who stories ever told. A reputation I wholeheartedly agree with. But what do you think? Were there any surprise inclusions? Did I leave out your top choice? Let me know what your favorite 12th Doctor stories are down in the comments below. And with that, Merganman4 over and out, and I'll see you all next time with my top 10 13th Doctor stories.